That's one of the most awful things I've ever seen in my life. Let me tell you why. Because there was an earthquake that hit there. It lasted 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, schools crumbled. Houses were disintegrated. In 30 seconds, transportation stopped. In 30 seconds, 250,000 people died. 30 seconds. 250,000 people. How many people are in Bowling Green? Anybody know? Here? 50. All right, so this city.
50,000.
5 times. Gone. It's horrible. Remember, they had this guy that was riding with us. His name was Odinese, and Odinese is one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. And Odinese said, "I'd like to take you to my apartment complex so you can see my apartment complex." "Why are we going to go to an apartment complex, man?" He says, "Well, because I'm the only one who survived. The only guy alive." All right, let's go see it. Remember, we drove there, they stopped, we got out. I remember he was at the bottom of the hill, he was showing us what used to be a 5-story building, now it's 1 story. We're looking at his actual bathroom. It was on the 5th floor, it's now directly in front of me. And up at the top of the hill, one of their cleanup crews, which by the way, cleanup crews down there don't consist of heavy machinery. They're Haitian men with sledgehammers who are breaking apart boulders, putting them in wheelbarrows, and stacking them on the side of the road. That's their cleanup crews. And one of their cleanup crews is at the top of the hill working through this massive thing. There's 2 guys up there with sledgehammers trying to break apart what's left of an apartment complex to clean it up. I remember I walked up to the top of the hill and he smashed a boulder, he pulled it apart. And I remember when he picked up one of the boulders, he pulled it apart, pulled it back, there in the ground. There in the ground. Never forget this picture. Was a body that had been underneath the rubble. I was standing like 5 feet away from him. And I try to act big and tough and mean. I'm wearing black because I want to look tougher, you know. But let me tell you something. You see something like that for the first time, it messes you up, you know. You start realizing that these people are in trouble. Not only did they lose 250,000 of their friends and family, but they're trying to put their whole country back together. And as they dig, they run into more and more bodies buried under the rubble. They said there were so many bodies that they had to line them on the street side and wait on the trash truck to come through and pick them up and take them to mass graves outside of Port Prince. Let that sink for a second. Remember they said, "We'd like to take you up to this hillside and meet this guy by the name of Pastor Felix." Cool, let's go do it. And we drove all the way up to the top of this mountain. And we got to where we were going. I hopped out of the car. Pastor Felix was out. Well, there he is. That's Pastor Felix right there. He's sitting up on the hillside near his house. And I remember I walked right up to Pastor Felix. I'm like, "What's up, Pastor Felix? How you doing, man?" You okay?" And I remember we had this lady with us. Her name was Melissa. She was in Food for the Hungry. She was helping me translate. And she walked up next to me. She said, "Pastor Felix, would you please tell Jason about your experience in the earthquake?" And he says, "Sure." And he walks me over to his home site and he shows me a slab in the ground. He says, "Jason, when the earthquake happened, my home that I built with my hands caved to the ground instantly." And then he walked me over 15 feet away and showed me 2 more slabs in the ground. He said, "Jason, when the earthquake happened, both of my brothers were asleep in their homes and they died instantly when the concrete fell in on them." Then he showed me across the yard what used to be a church that he had built, his family had for years and years. He said when the earthquake happened, that caved in too. He said, but the worst part of this whole thing is not the earthquake. He said it was the aftermath, because in the aftermath, there were 700 people left in my village alive. They all came running down the hillside to what used to be my church, looking for food, looking for water, looking for help. He said, what was I supposed to do? I just lost my brothers, just lost my home, just lost everything I've ever known, and now 700 people need my help. And to make matters worse, the only well that we have in this entire village started drying up because the water tables got shifted, and now all of a sudden the water's drying up. So we took a walk to the well to take a look and see what it looks like. This is what it looks like. People are fist fighting at the well, and one of the things I show when I show this picture, I like to make people recognize. Look at this. Who's not getting the water? It's the kids. They can't get water, they're too small. They sit on their buckets on the side, wait on the adults to get their water. When the adults leave, they walk up with their buckets filling. And to make matters worse, Pastor Felix now has, no joke, 100 children a day that show up at his church. Most of them now orphans that need food, need water. need help. The only place they know other than home is his church. So he figures the best thing he can do is set up a tent. So he sets up a tent, and for 2 to 3 hours a day, he does whatever he can to keep these kids entertained and get their minds off the fact that so many of their friends and family are gone. Absolute desperate situation. And I guess that's the whole point, isn't it? I mean, geez, what are we supposed to do to fix that issue? How are we going to fix those things? I remember standing on that hillside, looking out over Port-au-Prince and thinking in my head, there is no way. God, what am I doing here? I mean, seriously, it's too big. There's no way to fix this. There's no way to do anything about this. I remember Melissa, she walked right up beside me. She said, Jason, you need to do one thing. You need to have faith that God can change all of this. You need to have faith. And I remember thinking, have faith? Yeah, I'll have faith. That's awesome. I just said, let's just have faith. Have faith that all this is going to get fixed. That's awesome. Let me say something. I'm impressed with you. Seriously, you built a tent. Rock on. You built a tent. That's awesome. And congratulations. You're doing a lot for these kids. But seriously, where is the construction crew that's coming up this hillside that's going to rebuild the homes for these orphans? Where's the construction crew that's coming up this hill that's going to get another well? Because I don't see anybody running up this hillside to do anything to fix these issues. I remember in that moment, I really did honestly, get upset and angry at the situation. Like, seriously, why would God bring me to Haiti just to tell me I couldn't do anything about anything? You know? But that's when I remember, it felt like God told me, Jason, remember. Remember what? Jason, remember, you've seen things like this before. What am I supposed to remember, God? What do you want me to do? Remember Nicaragua. Nicaragua, what's that got to do with anything? That's when I realized, 5 years earlier, I would have been one of those people that would have said, child sponsorship, what do you think about it? Please raise your hand and answer the question. What do you think about child sponsorship? And I would have raised my hand and said, it's stupid. Waste of money. A lot of people spend a lot of money on something that ain't doing jack. There's no way that can make any difference at all. I'm just being honest. Seriously, there's nothing. You're asking me for $32 a month. Means, first of all, I don't have $32. Second of all, if I did have it, how is that going to change a child's life? I'd have been that guy. I'd have raised my hand. But that was before I went to Nicaragua for the first time. And I got to meet a child whose life was completely changed by sponsorship. I remember before this child was sponsored, he was eating beans and water 3 times a day. That's all his parents could afford to feed him. That's it. Beans and water 3 times a day. He gets sponsored by somebody like you and me that sees his picture and says, you know what, God, by faith, I'm going to trust you with this. I don't know about this whole thing, but God, by faith, I'm just going to trust you with it. One person sponsors this kid. His parents are given, no joke, 7.5 acres of land. They're given 700 pineapple plants, and this kid's family now owns their own pineapple farm. This kid now goes to the only school in the entire jungle of Nicaragua that has computers in it, so he can learn the skills he needs to go to the big city and live a life completely different from his parents before. And why? Because somebody like you and me took a risk and said, God, by faith, I trust you with this. As much as I trust you with my tithes at my church, I'm going to trust you with this, God, because you're big enough. You want to know why Building429 and Winter Blast and all this thing is going on? You want to know why we're here? Because whether it be in Haiti, whether it be in Africa, whether it be in Nicaragua, whether it be in South America, there are children that are in desperate situations. They don't have enough food. They don't have enough water. They don't have their medical needs met. They don't know about the love of Jesus Christ, and they need you and me to do something about it, to save them. That's why I'm here tonight. That's why we come here. And guys, I can't tell you what it takes for you to sponsor a child tonight. That's not for me to say. That's a God and you decision. It's not a Jason and you decision. I want to say it up front. It's a God and you decision, not a Jason and you decision. But maybe there's one of you who's extremely blessed. You can sponsor several kids all by yourself. Every time I talk about this, somebody says, I can sponsor more than one child. If that's you, praise God. Or maybe there's a group of you, like in a small group, a youth group, you all want to come together and sponsor one child together. If that's you, man, praise God. We can do this if that's you. Guys, I can't tell you what it takes for you to sponsor a child tonight, but I can tell you this. Child sponsorship is really, really not about, really not about the money. I even tell you why. Because if you're anything like me, you load your family up to go out to eat one time, you drop them $32 to $35 just to go out once. Gone, just like that. If you're anything like me, you go to the mall, which I went to the mall today, you can buy t-shirts for $32. Seriously, we've all done it. Or if you're anything like me, you can take me to Starbucks, which by the way, your Starbucks is awesome. I stop here all the time. You can take me to